good evening, everyone, and welcome to WSN Men Live, Widower Support Network Men Live. My name's Chris Bentley. I'm the founder and executive director of Wings for Widows and the current steward of Widower Support Network. And while this may be my first time meeting many of you, I'm honored to be part of this community that has supported widowers for years, and I'm grateful to continue that work alongside of you. Widower Support Network exists to support men not only in grief, but the other side of that coin is in the ongoing work of rebuilding after the loss, emotionally, practically, and relationally. And these live events are designed to do that in a more personable setting, perhaps in Facebook. I think our private men's members only Facebook group is fantastic. It's a great first step, but it's somewhat transactional. I think getting together like this is one way that we can create space for real conversation, live conversation, ongoing, timely advice and guidance and connection with other men who understand this journey. So before we begin, I want to share that WSN Men Live, it's new this year. It's new for members. It's new for non-members too, but it costs you nothing if you're a member. And these events are held every month, 2 or 3 times a month. You can expect an event, and you can find out these details about upcoming speakers and topics on our website, both on the members only page, but also on the home page, in our monthly newsletters, and through posts in our private Facebook group. Okay, so keep checking, keep reading. Wherever you're spending your time at WSN, you'll find out who's coming up next. We have a full calendar of meaningful conversations ahead, so I hope that you'll join us often. Just a couple of housekeeping notes. Again, this session is being recorded so that others in our community can benefit from the conversations later. So if you prefer to keep your cameras off, you can switch those off. If you're having dinner or having a good cigar, I think I saw, that's completely okay. It doesn't matter to us whether you have your cameras on or off. Totally okay to have them off though if you prefer. Feel free to use the chat. I have that up. If you have questions, you can ask them as type them in there as you go, and we'll get to those. We will have a Q&A portion at the end. And if I see a question kind of come in right while we're in the middle of something and I can grab it, we'll try to answer it right then. So don't let that hold you back. Feel free to ask away, and we'll try to get to all of them before we wrap up tonight. And also, as always, we just ask you, this space, just keep it respectful and supportive. Everyone's here for the same reason, to commune, to connect, with guys. And everyone's experience with loss is different, and we appreciate the care that this community consistently shows one another. So again, thanks for being here tonight. I'm grateful that you chose to spend the next hour with us. Tonight, it is an honor to welcome Mr. Herb Knoll. Herb is the founder of the Widower Support Network and the author of The Widower's Journey. More importantly, Herb is a widower who recognized early on the men grieving the loss of a spouse were largely invisible in the support landscape. We're going to talk a little bit about that tonight. So what began as one man looking for understanding became a global community. 45 countries are now involved with WSN. And, global community of widowed men seeking connection, validation, and a place to land without pressure, where you can be real, where you can be honest and authentic, no selling, no obligation, just being real. So Herb didn't set out to create an organization per se. He built what he needed, and in doing so, created something that thousands of men now rely on. So Herb, tonight's conversation, it's grounded in Herb's lived experience, his years of listening to widowers around the world, his 48 podcasts in his podcast series that I didn't mention, and his belief that men deserve support that respects how they grieve and how they rebuild. So Herb, welcome to our second WSN Men Live event this week. How are you doing tonight?
Very good, Chris. Thank you very much, and good evening, gentlemen.
Well, I will just jump right in, and I um, think for those that might be on this call that don't know us, and there's a lot of folks here who don't know me. We'll get to me later, but for anyone here that's new that really doesn't know your story, why don't we just start there? Let's start at the beginning. That be okay?
Okay. Uh, I was living in Nashville when my wife was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in 2005. And she fought it for 39 months. And in the process, we relocated to San Antonio. I lost her in 2008. And about 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks after her passing, I was in my office. I was a banker. And one of my staff members came in my office and said, "Everybody on the floor misses your laughter."
Mhm.
And then I realized I wasn't normal. So I went to the VA because I'm a disabled vet, and I went to my church, and then I went to Barnes and Noble. And in all three cases, I was seeking help with my grief. In Barnes and Noble, I asked the gentleman behind the counter, "What do you have for a new widower?" Typed it in his search engine, and he looked up at me and he said, "Mister, I don't have a damn thing for you." And I thought, "You gotta be kidding me." And he said, "Let's go over to the bookcase." Okay, fine. We go to the bookcase. There's 15 books, each of them written for widows, and not one title written for men. I knew right there that I was going to write a book. Someone that needed to write it, it might as well be me. I had written in the past other books. So within a year, I resigned from my position, 38 years as a senior officer in a banking institution. I walked away from it and I rededicated my life to helping widowed men. And the first thing that I had to do is I had to find widowers other than me, and I found 40. And they were all ages, all circumstances, cancer. One was even murdered. I mean, it's the whole gamut in different age groups, different locations. And I studied these men and their behaviors for 6 to 7 years. I mean, they used to say to me, "Herb, are you ever going to publish this book?" But but I finally published it in 2017. And then I said, "Well, let me see. I've got to promote it. So I'll create a Facebook page." Well, all I was getting on the Facebook page were women. Now, I don't know if they were seeking the men, but
Maybe.
by the way, my mailing list is one of the most sought after mailing lists in America. All the women want to meet you guys. Um, but so I realized it wasn't working. So I then created a second Facebook page. And this one I policed heavily. And I only allowed widowed men or men who had something to offer widowed men who I would pre-screen into the membership. And off we went. 2007 was the year. Um, it was a great experience. I will tell you, it was probably the best thing I ever did in my life. I'm grateful that I had the skills from the banking industry that I was able to transition over to this endeavor. The problem with men who are widowed, particularly in America, in fact, I should tell you this. One of the podcasts, Chris mentioned I had recorded 48 of them. One of the podcasts, I interviewed four widowers simultaneously, like we are right now on our screen. One was in Australia, one was in England, one was in Scotland, and one was in India. By the way, the one in India, he was a 33-year-old eye surgeon. He lost his 32-year-old doctor wife, and she was 6 months pregnant.
Oh
So he
boy.
lost his firstborn also. And what we talked about on this podcast, and you can go in and listen to it, and Chris has it all available to you, uh, is the cultural differences between their countries and America and how we treat and engage widowed men. And I'm here to say America pales by comparison. I mean, we don't sensitize our children to be respectful of a widowed man. Widowed men in America don't feel that they have permission to grieve. They actually contribute to the problem because they frequently say, "Oh, I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine." No, you're not. You're not even close to being fine, any more than I was. So, in fact, one of the things that we produced is I called up a playwright, and I used to sit on his board of directors. And I suggested to him that I was writing a book, and I think there's a play in here. And he said, "What's it about?" I said, "Widowers." And he said, "Harold, I'm not going to do a play about widowers." I said, "Okay." So I started sending him little one-liners or things that my widowed audience were saying to me. I would send to him over a 6-week period. Suddenly in the mail, I got a script. And I called him up and I said, "What's this?" He said, "As I read your little notes that you were sending me, I've recalled my father was a widower. And I did not have the sensitivity for him. And I realize now that I need to produce this play." The play won new play in upstate New York a few years ago, and it's called "I'm Fine," which is the tagline for every man who's widowed. Um, so let me see. Oh yeah, okay. I had one man in talking about, men being abandoned or isolated. They close the drapes, they eat their TV dinners, and they say, "I'm fine." I had one man complain to me. He said he isn't invited to his best friend's house anymore. And I said, "Why is that?" He goes, "My old best friend thinks I'm going to hit on his wife." And so he got abandoned. And that happens to a lot of men. They get abandoned. The first few weeks, yeah, you'll get a lot of attention. You'll get some cards in the mail, you'll get some meals and such. But after that, it gets very lonely very quickly. And the challenge for widowed men, particularly those that are retired, is that they lose contact with people. And that's one of the keys because if they were in business, they lost their customer contact. They lost their coworker contact. And now they don't have, maybe the children live in another city or whatever. So and men are challenged to make new friends. I can't tell you how many men remained alone because they don't have the ability to get off the sofa and get out and engage people and make new friends, and especially the retirees. So I would encourage you to do that.
Here, let me stop you there for a second. I've got a number of questions building up in my head, but let me comment in reverse order. What you just said, um, don't have the ability. Is it they don't have the ability, or while they may have the ability, they lack the confidence because in a marriage, and I'm referring to my own, uh, my wife makes most of our social outing dates, right? She's the one
Right.
that's doing all that stuff. Is that kind of what happens? Is that piece of it leaves and is gone, and we're really not able, or we just lack the confidence to go, uh, or even because, as you said, some of those social circles just sort of evaporate. Where do you start to rebuild it? It would be different if you were just rebuilding with old friends, but now you're suggesting we start building with new friends is a real challenge. You just speak to that a little bit more? What are your thoughts on that?
Um, but I
You
should tell these gentlemen, I have a cochlear implant. You know what that is, gentlemen? It's for the hearing impaired. It's the military thing. And they put a device inside my skull. Um, and it was only a 32-year-old surgeon that did it. That's another
so
whole story. So I have to
so
rely
you're
on
reading,
word
aren't you?
caption.
Okay. All right. Does that come through okay?
Yeah, can you repeat the punchline or the
Well,
question?
just guys, the drapes are pulled. I'm fine, and don't don't have or lack the ability to go out and make friends. Is it really the lack of ability, or just where they are, their place? Their wife always took care of that. Now they're gone, and
Well,
how do they maneuver out of that? How did you maneuver out of
okay,
that?
well,
How
there's
did
a
you
couple
find new
things that
friends?
comes to mind. First of all, men have to remain coachable. Now that is a big line. I mean, that is a very important tip to all of you. Um, you have to be able to engage people, neighbors, volunteer, church, even maybe volunteer for a hospice or the Boy Scouts or a baseball team, Little League, anything to get off the sofa, anything. And that will pay dividends like creating the Widower Support Network was mine. I met people I never would have thought of. I mean, I see Fred Colby on here. He's a friend of mine now. You know, and I met him strictly through my volunteer work. So you should give yourself a challenge and write down the goals, what you're going to achieve. I wrote an article about widowed men need to have a plan. You can't just freelance it and do it impulsively every day. You need to have a plan. And then you need to measure yourself against that plan, every 3 months or 6 months or a year or whatever. And you will be amazed how far you've traveled if you have a plan. Um, let's see.
I would
Oh,
add one
that's
thing if I can. Um,
hey, Fred.
hi guys. It's good to have a plan, but it's also good to be open and responsive because you never know when the right opportunity is going to come down the pike. And for me, it was a gal that I had met was
Right.
already active in this group called meetup.com and a subgroup of that, Breakfast Club, which was a
There you
single
go.
men and women over the age of 55 for the most part. And for me, I was very fortunate because this particular group was very active and had everything from hiking to snowshoeing to skiing to dancing to going out just and meeting at a bar and sharing food with each other and going out dancing out at that and so on. So it took me out of my comfort zone completely. And I was able to enjoy meeting a whole lot of people and several of the guys, which were outnumbered about 4-1, like in everything else in that age
Yeah.
group. But some of the guys became friends as well. And, we'd go do our own snowshoeing and hiking and stuff like that. But so I'm being receptive. If I'd said no when she had invited me to that group, I would have missed making a lot of friends and
Right.
building new bridges, getting more confident because I was interacting with people without it being a one-on-one social dating type thing. So you have to be receptive, have to be open.
I had one lady tell me, Herb, I didn't want to bother you, so I didn't call. I mean, that's just a cop out. That's an excuse to not have to call. And I replied to her, I wish you would have. But making friends is the key. I mean, because you can't live by yourself for the rest of your life. And believe me, I've lost my wife. I know the pain of losing a spouse. Yeah. But today I'm remarried, I will tell you. I remarried about 3 years after I lost my wife, and I love both of these ladies. Uh, but y- y- there's there's reasons for joy in your life. You just have to find it. And I'm telling you, it exists for everybody. Now, let me caution you at the same time. Men are fixers. So let me tell you the story about my brother. He was on a plane with his wife, and his wife leaned over to him and said, "Honey, the boy behind me is kicking the back of my seat." So my brother leans over the top of the seat and looks at the boy and says, "Knock it off." And she leans back over to him and says, "What'd you do that for?" And he said, "Well, you told me that he was kicking the back of your seat." She said, "Yes, I just wanted you to know about it. I didn't want you to do anything about it." That is typical of men. I mean, even today, I find myself, my wife will say something that is a problem. I'll fix it. And she said, "No, don't do that. I wanted to tell you about it." So men are fixers. And when they're widowed, they see themselves as being broken. I got to fix myself. What do? I need a woman. And a large percentage of widowed men marry the first or second woman they ever date. Now, in high school, I had a new girlfriend every month, and I had no baggage to be concerned with. We didn't have any baggage coming along. Now we're adults and we have life's baggage. And you don't know what you don't know about the woman you're dating. You don't know if she's got a brother coming out of a federal penitentiary and needs a place to stay. You don't know the debt that she's bringing forward, or she hasn't shared her debt with you. You don't know what you don't know. And you have baggage, and you may shelter your baggage, and maybe she doesn't know what she doesn't know. So I would encourage men to date for at least 2 years. I would encourage men not to marry before 2 years. And I want to caution you that over 50% of men who remarry end in divorce. Now, when you lost your wife, the assets of the household remain with you. When you get divorced, that isn't going to happen. And there's been a lot of guys hurt. I was at a speaking engagement and I was talking about predator women. Now, there's predator men too. Don't get me wrong. But my subject is the widowers. So I talked about predator women. And a man came out of the audience and handed me his phone number on a piece of paper and he says, "Call me." Now, this is back when I was writing my book. So a couple days later, I give him a call and he tells me, I'm a stockbroker. I understand money. And I remarried too soon. And I married the first girl that I dated. She spent $1.2 million of mine in a 2-year period. So he's in the
Delayed his
book.
retirement, didn't it?
He's in my book that I wrote. He shared his story with me so I could share it with you. He actually said that. I want to give a heads up to your future audiences that be careful because you don't know what you don't know. Okay? Does that make sense?
That's good
Okay.
advice, Herb. Let's go back. The book did very well. It was really the first book I read after I got to know you. We'll talk about how we met later, but I read it right away, and I was so impressed that a banker could write so well, right? I was, and you hit. It seems now, in retrospect, 2 years later, as I've learned more about this journey, um, you hit. I mean, you really kind of hit every subject, and you said that came from about 40 guys. Did those guys come from where did you find them? Did that come from the Facebook group as well? Is that where you started cultivating that? Because it did take you a long time to get her done. Was that just in getting to know these guys and follow these guys? How did you do that? Because the book is so good. And if you haven't read it, I highly encourage you on this call to read it. and there's other authors on this call, and you ought to read their books too. But that's another event. And so how did that work? Because it's so good.
How did it work? How did I put it together?
Well, yeah, the guys that you were following over such a long period of time, and just that process of staying in touch with them, because it seemed like you really nailed it, right? You got all when you look at the chapter, the table of contents, and you walk through those topics, they're the biggies. Every one of them is on point, and those
Yeah.
seem to be the ones that over and over and over guys are talking about. And your book addresses those. So I'm just kind of curious, and maybe the guys are who haven't read your book, how you put this beautiful thing together.
A lot of it was from my own experience and challenges that I was confronted with. And in the book, I show the pictures of the 40 men. And, like I said, they're of all ages and they were committed to the endeavor because they knew that there was nothing else out there. Like when I went to Barnes and Noble and there was nothing on the shelf. So they wanted to be among the leaders and contribute to this endeavor. Um, the book went through a couple different drafts, and it was longer than the finished product. So I actually have like another book on the shelf that I could release if I wanted to. But this made it nice and concise and it's a great tool. Several people have told me they've read it multiple times or they use it as a reference book.
And I know you've gotten a lot of great feedback over the years from it
Yeah.
as well. So, today, if you go to Barnes and Noble, are they still around? I don't know. I get all my books from Amazon now, but assuming that you can go into a bookstore today, they're going to find more books than there were when you became widowed. And I know, Fred's on this call, and Fred would say the same thing. I lost my wife, and there was nothing on the bookshelf, and he also decided to write his own. Again, Widower to Widower, another great book. But um, I guess the question in there is that widowed men struggled when there wasn't any help when you became widowed, and widowed men today, where there is help, it probably hasn't changed. Like what they're dealing with, what they have to deal with is universal. Whether there was a book on the shelf or not, what you dealt with and what men are dealing with today, it's probably the same things. What would you say are the one or two really tough? You talked about dating, you talked about getting off the couch, getting active again, taking that initiative to get going. But what are the one or two, three things that they're maybe experiencing, least likely to talk about, or even want to admit to themselves where they're struggling? What would you say to
Their
that?
loneliness. Because the men feel, this is my observation anyways, the men feel that they have to be strong. And that's why they say they're fine. And they're reluctant to ask the questions that they need to have answers to because they don't want to look weak. So they don't ask questions, and they should. Um, the the isolation is what most men complain about. They talk about going to work, or a lot of them go back into industry, back into work, just to be around people. But when they come home, or they don't like the weekends because the weekends they're home and it's quiet. One man told me he watches cooking shows on TV just to break up the monotony of the silence in his house. And he was a PhD, he was a highly educated man, but he watches cooking shows. So uh, there's a lot of different, you know, avenues for everybody. I also want to mention, I talked before about you don't know what you don't know, and men are fixers. Another thing that to caution the widowed men about is there 65% of widowed men will have a life-threatening illness within the first year.
Yeah.
Now, Why is that? First of all, because of our age in some cases. But the wife used to send you to the doctor. The wife used to kick your butt and say, go to the doctor and get that deal dealt with. And you reluctantly went. I was in a doctor's office today, and the doctor was talking to my wife, not to me, but I was the patient. So uh, take care of your health, because without that, you're in trouble. And also, um, I mentioned the divorce, right? Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's it. I guess that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. So loneliness, isolation, kind of get off the couch. Um, kind of the idea that you have to say fine because that's what society expects, that you're big and strong, uh, and tough, and you are fine. I think the society probably actually believes you when you say you're fine, and when clearly you're not, right?
Yeah.
Um, I guess we're pretty good at putting on, and I say we. I want to make it clear I'm not a widower. I'm a guy, and I think all guys. I think at all times, sometimes we put on masks, and I think that's a mask that widowers put on. I'm fine. I'm a survivor, right? And it's this mask that we're pretty convincing. Pretty convincing because I've talked to widowers and they say they're fine. I'm like, wait a second. So only 6 months ago you lost Betsy. Like, come on, you can't be fine. And in fact they're not. So I think it's hard, and I guess this is my question. It's kind of hard to admit, right? It's hard to break out of that. It's hard to take that mask off and go, man, I am not fine. I need to be vulnerable. I need to feel what I feel, and that's loneliness, and I'm scared, and I need help, and then to go get it. And I think so many guys just resist that, you know.
Yeah. I want to caution the gentleman on another behavior that I've witnessed. Some men will propose to a woman and then introduce her to their children, and the children have issues. Now, maybe, and I've seen it where the children feel like dad's estate is now going to go to her instead of us. I've seen that. Or I don't like this woman. I don't think she's got my father's best interest at heart. I got to caution my father. And the father takes the attitude of, it's my life. I'm going to live it the way I want to live it. The clock is spinning. I'm getting older. There isn't much time left in this life. I'm going to marry this woman. And the children abandon the father. And then, if he's among the 50% that gets divorced, he now no longer has a new wife and he no longer has his children. Now he's really isolated. So it's a different game that we play at our age brackets. So just be careful, gentlemen, and have your eyes open and your ears turned on, and just be careful.
I think Warren talked about uh, the pace, just slowing the pace down, and
Right.
is
Exactly.
is
Yeah.
is really would be a protection for yourself and your heart, and your and your pocketbook, right? To
Right.
slow the pace down of trying to get through this, because ultimately you can,
Also, I would recommend prenuptial agreements.
yeah,
Um,
for sure.
don't make the don't get backed into a wall by someone who says, if I have to sign that, I'm not going to marry you. Let them go.
Mhm.
I mean, I feel very strongly about that
We could put a
because,
whole show together of just
yeah,
talking about protecting ourselves.
yeah,
Uh,
and it
right.
protects everybody. It protects the wife too, the new wife, and her heirs, and it protects your heirs. So just, you know,
You know,
just give it some good thoughts.
wise advice. That was also in your book. So good, good stuff. We talked about the book a little bit of, mentioned the podcast, certainly talked about the book and some great advice coming out of that. Let's, you talked about also the Facebook group that you started, but somewhere along the lines, you created a website. You created this entity called Widower Support Network. It was a Florida
Right.
LLC, if I recall. And, you know, so you continue to sort of build out this organization with some vision about continuing to help men. Um, the podcast over a number of years, and having a place, or kind of a home for those to be and to share. Um, when you created that, and this sort of will get us bridge us into talking about part two, where I come in. But what mattered to you? What mattered to you when you launched Widower Support Network? What was the most important thing to you as you did that? And this is, now I mean, you're well down the path, if you will, in terms of, um, even 10 years after your loss and remarrying, and moving forward, you had Widower Support Network at a place, that was chugging along great. What mattered to you most at that? What did you feel? What were you feeling then?
I wanted to give the men the assurance of confidentiality and safety. We police that very hard. Um, but I knew I had to win their trust over time. And it became incredibly more successful than I ever imagined. And it got to the point where, I mean, Chris took it over because I'm getting older and up in years, and I needed to be sure that my audience was going to be served going forward. I also have some health issues. So I wanted to protect my audience by finding somebody who could take the reins, and Chris has done a masterful job with that. And I couldn't be happier with it, going over to Chris. So the men needed to be able to trust me, and with their innermost thoughts, with their I mean, I police, or I don't police. I receive a lot of one-on-one phone calls from my audience, and I'm happy to do it, and I don't charge for it. It's just my volunteering. Um, and I got my payback. It served my grief. It helped me get through my grief. It introduced me to great people. It broadened my skills. It broadened my view of the world. And uh, that's pretty much it.
Yeah,
Just a safe haven for widowed men. That's
yeah.
what I wanted to be able to say I created.
And you did. And the backstory on this is, Herb joined my board at Wings for Widows, and Herb and I met in Lake Mary, one beautiful. It was a beautiful summer morning, at for coffee. And I thought it'd be a 30, 45 minute, cup of coffee. I think we were there for several hours. And the more we talked, the more we found commonality. Um, I laughed at his jokes. He laughed at mine. That was a good start. But it was really about our hearts, and getting to know. We were both served in the military, and our value structure was very well aligned. And no, I'm not a widower, but I've been running Wings for Widows for 7 years at that time. I'd been in my own church men's group for 16 years, and been around the company of men, and a lot of that time is spent in ministry to men. And so, we just saw we had this chemistry. And you can nod if I'm, as long as you keep nodding yes, Herb, I'll keep talking. But it's just a great couple of hours, and we actually broached the idea of, like, well, Herb's kind of looking for a successor, and I kind of liked the idea of what he was, well, not like the idea. I loved what he had done with Widower Support Network, but I kind of was warming to the idea that maybe I could get involved. So initially, for a full year, Herb and I, with Herb on our board, I asked him, I go, Herb, you got to join the board, because Wings for Widows, right? We're going to have Wings for Widows buy this. And we worked for a year on our board of directors to soften them up, get them to see the vision that I had and that Herb had. The more we got to know each other and really talking to each other, if not weekly, monthly, if not monthly, at least, somewhere in there. I mean, we were talking a lot and how we could pull this off and all the white papers and research that I provided and shared with the Wings for Widows board, and I couldn't get it done. And I kept like this. I felt like I'm disappointing her. Like Herb needs a successor, and he's kind of counting on me, and just can't get Wings to pull the trigger. And so it was in December of 2024, and I told Herb and I were talking. I said, I just shook my head. We're virtual like this. I said, Herb, hell, let's come up with the paperwork. Let's just get this done. We got to get you retired. And that was sort of where it all began. And within a month or so, we shook hands on the deal and put that deal in place. Is that pretty accurate, Herb?
Yes, that's very. And it was an honor to serve on your board and meet the other players that you had serving around you. Um, Chris has already introduced programming that is beyond anything that I had ever imagined. So I'm still involved. I'm still contributing, at a lesser rate. Like I said, I do have some health issues, so I go to the doctors a lot. But I'm very proud to be associated with the new home for the Widower Support Network.
You guys may have noticed a few changes, um, and I'll just share my vision a little bit on what's going on. Okay. Um, what Herb created was, phase one, if you will. If somebody was sitting up here and said, I've got a 20-year, vision for this, Herb took care of phase one, in my opinion, and he did a heck of a job, right? So using Facebook, and it was a lot easier to use Facebook in the old days. It's getting harder and harder to do what you want to do on Facebook with all the algorithm changes and things. But it's a great platform to get guys together to at least so they don't feel so low, right? And if you're not a member of the Facebook, you should join. It's free. Uh, it's always free. So you should join that. And there are a lot of folks on there. There's 2,000 people there that coming and going at any one time, and they've all got experiences. And some might relate really well to you, and others may not, but are there for you. And even if they're not commenting, they're reading. They're right. So if you post, you may get one or many responses. The thing about Facebook, as I said, it's a great place to begin with, I guess, what we talked about, right? You heard Herb say, mention, and you've experienced it, isolation, right? Not having someone that you can just be real with, to open up to be vulnerable with. And that's the wonderful thing that Herb's created at WSN well before I ever showed up, using the Facebook group. And he's grown that to, there's probably been probably 10,000 men have come and gone over the years through Facebook. And so I asked Herb, I go, well, why are guys coming and going? Like, why don't they just stay? If it's so good, why aren't they just staying? And Herb's response, and I think I have this right, was they grow out of grief. And that's a good thing. But, someone only wants to be in that environment talking about their grief and with others their grief. And at some point, guys are saying, I need more. And that was my challenge. That was my challenge. What would more look like? What would be phase two? What would come after the grief? How do we move men from grief initially to the next chapter? What has to happen in between? And
Chris, if
number
I
one
could
is,
just
yeah, go
add,
anytime.
what a lot of men, not a good number of our members would do is I would not see them as often on Facebook, and I would not hear from them. And then they would later on tell me, I'm just so tired of the new members coming on board and sitting there crying in their words, and they're hurting and they're grieving, and I'm like in graduate school. I need to move on to the next graduate school for widowers. And that's what Chris is, in many respects, is creating, is a grad school, um, because he's got lots of different variable products. And the older members aren't always exposed to the newer members. Um, so it's an ideal situation.
Thanks, Herb. And I think grad school is a good way to put it. Um,
Yeah.
and I think that, as you say, there's a realization that comes that, okay, this is good, but I need to grow out of this, and every time I log into Facebook, it's like I'm not growing. I'm just in this kettle and the water's boiling, and I need to move forward and not percolate up and down like in a pot of boiling water is how I think of it. And so that was the challenge that I had, and after a lot of work with Herb and others and thinking through this, and um, was other groups, and I had a lot more exposure over the last 10 years to widows and how and what they do and how they do it through Wings for Widows, which I started in 2018. So we're in our ninth year, and we've learned a lot. Now, Wings for Widows, if you're not familiar with them, we deal with the practical side of loss. There's, grief is one side of the coin, but while you're grieving, things have to get done, right? Mortgage has to be paid, income has to come in, things have to happen, and those things happen right alongside the grief. And what I realized about 10 years ago is that there were no professionals giving away this guidance, this advice that would come alongside and help men or women, men and women, if they needed help, like if they didn't have a financial professional or a professional network. And 800,000 people a year who get widowed do not. Where are they supposed to go? Where are they supposed to go?
Yeah.
There's no place to go.
One out
So
of every five men will be widowed. That's the
there's a
number.
there's a boatload of numbers. But every year it's about 800,000 people that don't have a professional advisor, and that's made up of men and women. And so it was clear to me that there's this huge gap, and so I created Wings for Widows so that we could use financial advisors, they're volunteers, at no cost, come alongside men and women and help them get through this transition period, mainly financial, legal, administrative, all the stuff you got to deal with after a loss. Many times there's financial struggles in there. There's certainly some legal struggles, and I could talk about stories forever. But through Wings for Widows and all of that, we work with about 90% of the time with women. So I naturally learned a lot about working with widows, and they do a lot of really good things around their bereavement. But a lot of those organizations that serve as we do in the grief phase, they also have the follow-on phases. They have grad school, and so that's where I went and said, okay, well, what are you doing here? How are you helping them here? How are you doing? And this is what they do. And so this is no brainchild of mine. It's like it's working elsewhere. We're just going to make it work here. And so these events are one component of that. The newsletter that I started in January a year ago was a component of that, to approach a new topic each month. That is one of those areas that come up in Herb's book. Every chapter of Herb's book is covered in the topics that we try to address in our newsletters. They're called rebuilding blocks. The idea is right rebuilding, and so that's part of recovery. And the next chapter and grad school is about what are those things I need to do to get to a better place, outside of that cauldron of grief. And so that's what that's where I've been very busy getting ready for. Started with the membership, founding members. Many of you, I hope, are founding members. It was open to everyone, all of 2025. Come in, join WSN Men for free. Had nothing to do with Facebook. You're still Facebook, but now you're joining this organization, and and about 350 members right today, and that's growing weekly. New folks joining every week. Folks can join free now, starting January 1st. It was all free for a year, and then January 1st we kicked off the membership, where there's actually a portal to sign in. Kicked off the programming, the live programming, and to join to accompany the newsletters. And there is more coming. I'm not going to tell you about it all tonight. We want a few months to continue to improve this programming and some of the other things that are coming. But I think when you log into Widower Support Network, you go to the website, you see a different site. Spent a lot of time building that site, kind of rebuilding it based on Herb's branding, and then really our focus is on adding services that help keep folks around and help them outside of grief, if you will, or certainly alongside of grief. So grief is a component, and every month there'll be someone coming live to talk about grief. There'll be next week we have dating with Christina Baumgartner. Will be here live. She wants to come every month because she said dating. Herb, you mentioned this. Dating well and dating badly. It's one of the biggest problems that widowers have. Widows, not so much. They're very cautious, very protective. Guys, we love relationships. Whether you're divorced, widowed, or single, most of us love relationships. And I guess I can't say always all the time. And so, we think we're going to feel better if we get into a relationship. And as Herb warned, that comes fraught with all kinds of, landmines. And so Christina's going to be here every month to talk about dating, different aspects of dating. And I've talked to her now for a few hours, and I can't believe how complicated a subject this is.
She's great.
She's fantastic. Great. So that's next week. Don't miss that one. Yeah. If you're at all interested in, if you're in that part of your journey. But anyway, that's what this is about. It is helping you cope beyond Facebook with a way to connect with guys. And again, there'll be a programming coming in March or April where you'll be able to actually connect in groups where there are common themes, if you will, common likes to connect at different levels, and that there'll be more coming out on that, both in the newsletter and on the website next quarter. So, kind of winding down. I know there's a lot of questions we didn't get to, Herb, but go ahead. What'd you have?
Yeah, three things. When I was widowed, I was in bad shape. And I went to a doctor and got some medication for my depression. Some men are reluctant to go to see a doctor, and some men are reluctant to take an antidepressant. I want to tell you, I was on an antidepressant for 5 weeks, and it served me well. So you shouldn't be shy. Please, the first thing I tell every widower to do is go see a doctor and get checked out first. Next thing I want to mention to you is that many widowers, when they get married, they leave our group. And I'm saying, don't do that, because I promise you, you're going to wish you had access to the boys because you have a question that you can't answer yourself, and you're going to be out on the street. So you need to stay in the group, and we will be your counselors, or we'll be your aide de camp going forward. And Chris, that's it for now. But I wanted to also offer, if anybody would like to talk to me, I don't charge. Send me an email, and I'll be happy to take your call and answer any kind of questions you didn't want to ask in this forum. So you can write me at herb@thewidowersjourney.com.
Yeah, thanks, Herb. And I hope you all know how to get a hold of me. As a member, you have access to my private line, and as well as on every newsletter. If you've not signed up, I recommend you do. But You have access to the newsletters, and all my contact information is in the newsletter every month as well. There were no questions for tonight, which is fine. There were a lot of thank yous. And Herb, I'll share these with you. But Tom Payton, I think, wrote, "I am forever indebted to Herb and Fred, who saved me and gave me meaning and a new way to live my life." I mean, that just
Thank
gotta
you,
make you
Tom.
feel, gotta make you feel great. A lot of guys saying hi. Being a widower just plain sucks. Yeah, I don't think anybody would disagree with that. Um, so just some comments about the book. Looks like Grover dropped in. He just wanted to say hi as well. So anyway, so no real questions. And as we wind down here in the last minute, Herb, did you have a final comment before I
Yeah,
close this
can I
out?
just say something to, is it Dolph? Is that your
Yeah,
first name?
Dolph.
My deceased wife was a breeder of golden retrievers. And
Okay.
they owned my house. Every time a puppy was born, I went down the further on the list of important creatures in the house because the puppies ruled supreme. But there's our three dogs.
Yeah, the gang. The gang. Thanks, Herb.
Nice. Thank you. I've got four.
You have four? Wow.
That'll keep you busy. That's a lot of dog food.
We had two, but then there was an unplanned pregnancy, and my wife delivered the litter 6 months before she passed.
My wife had 9 puppies delivered the night before her diagnosis.
Okay, are you guys competing now? That sounds like a challenge. Hey, we have two cats. Top that. Now, okay, so guys, just to keep us on time here, it's 8 o'clock. I appreciate it. I want to bring our conversation to a close. I want to thank Herb, who did most of the talking, but that's why you're here, was to listen to Herb and his wisdom tonight. Again, you can catch Herb next quarter, and probably by popular demand, we can have him back anytime you want. I know Herb. I know how to get it. I know how to find you, Herb. I think these conversations. Oh, cute dog. Dolph, say something so you can go big screen. That's a beautiful animal. He's muted. All right. Well, that's a beautiful animal. I guess it's wise to say, you ought to bring your pets when you come to these events. It's perfectly okay. I think they bring a lot of joy, and I think if you don't have one, that's another way to they have to go out on walks, and so that's one way to get you off the sofa is to have an animal, right? That requires you to service them. But let's get back to, I'll close this out here. Again, I want to be respectful of everybody's evening. But these conversations, just showing up here and logging in and being seen, takes courage. And we're grateful for the openness and care that, are brought in this space. And Herb, thanks for all your fantastic advice.
You're quite
It's
welcome.
so appreciated. Thank you, everyone who joined us. Your presence, your comments, your thankfulness, your gratitude, and willingness to engage. It's what makes this fun, what makes this meaningful. So, talk it up. As a reminder, you're going to receive a very brief email for attending tonight, and it will have a survey with only 5 questions. It literally will take you less than 60 seconds to complete. And these are brand new, and I want to know what you're feeling about them. If you enjoy them, would you come back? What topics would you like to hear? Because this is a work in progress. I don't have I don't have dominion on any of this stuff. I'm just a servant here. So you let me know. Please complete the surveys when you can at your convenience, and just let me know what you're thinking. And I'm definitely reading them. Okay. Um, Other than that, Herb, unless you have a final closing remark, I'll close this out.
Just if anybody comes by Orlando, Florida, stop and see me. We'll do lunch. Okay?
Yeah, I owe you. Yeah, I need to get together with you in Orlando next. I'm in Sarasota, everyone, in case you were wondering. So a couple of Florida guys here. So, all right. Well, take good care of yourselves, and remember, you don't have to navigate this journey alone. Herb made himself available. I'm available. Guys are available to support you. So we look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you and good night, everyone.
Good night.